Well, good morning, guys. Don Pelayo checking in with you. I'm got my summer attire on. Today is July 6th, 2025, Sunday. I'm going to my parents' house this morning. I'm sitting here in the parking lot, not too far from their house. I always get up and out a little early. It's only 7:20 in the morning, so I'm just giving it a little bit of time before I show up at their house. I was thinking a lot about how Americans are so divided today, and it's just I think that's our biggest problem more than anything else, really. I mean, the debt being a close number two, but our country is just so divided politically. No matter which side does what, we just seem to want to oppose anything the other side does, and cheer everything our side does, right? And I have, as I've gotten a little older, I do try to be a little bit more, looking at each bill that passes, looking at everything, and there's things I like, there's things I don't like. The bill that I told you the other day on one of my previous videos that the bill just passed, the big beautiful bill. I think some of it's good. I do worry about about the debt issue. That's one of my biggest concerns in with our politics these days. I have a friend of mine that, and I think a lot of young people are in this boat. We saw the vote in New York City for the mayor's race, and Mamdani won, who more or less kind of sounds like a Marxist, but seems kind of opposed to the capitalist system and wants to go to a more government-controlled, distribution of assets, and that starts to get a little bit dangerous. That does get a little dangerous when people start talking like that. That definitely perks up my attention. I don't want to see the government controlling everything, in terms of income and wealth distribution. That's not the role of our government. What I would really like to see happen, I've thought about this. It's like, the United States has always been a capitalist country. We've had periods where the rich have gotten a little too wealthy. The wealth distribution has gotten a little out of control. We saw that back in like the 1880s, 1890s, and the Gilded Age and all of that. The robber barons, and you had your Vanderbilts and the different titans, J.P. Morgan and all those guys back in those days. And then but by the, right after World War II, when we were in the 50s and early 60s, I think the wealth and the income and wealth distribution was a lot closer. We didn't have these I'm sure there were rich people at that point too, but it wasn't so pronounced as it is today. And I think that's the problem, is that we're just in one of these periods where it's just gotten a little skewed. And I'm not suggesting that we change our capitalist system, but I do think we need to look at ways that, there's things that the government could do, remaining in a capitalist system to help even some of that out. I do feel like, in terms of tax policy, things like that, even maybe employment laws, in terms of, more equal, and, where you're not having such real disparate incomes between the executives and the employees, because that's just gotten completely out of whack. It's where you've got the top people making tens of millions of dollars a year, and the average employees earning barely enough to survive on. That's not the way. That's not. I don't even look at that as being capitalism, really. That's a system that's gotten out of control. A lot of greed at the top. So I would like to see us get back to where we were, maybe back in the 1950s, 1960s. That kind of system. I think we did have more powerful unions back then. Unions, also can get out of control. It's like there just needs to be a better balance. I want to see more balance between business interests and labor. There needs to be a better balance there. Right now, I feel like the corporations have all the control when it comes to that. The unions were almost completely killed off. And to be honest, the unions did a lot of that to themselves. I remember, reading the news stories back in the day, late 80s, early 90s, hearing about this stuff when I was younger. The unions would just demand more and more and more and more. And it's like they took advantage of it, and it's like we just have to find a way of that, balancing that out. Anyway, so I just think that that's part of the reason why we have some of the hostility these days, because when politically, there were people that didn't like Ronald Reagan back in the 80s. There were things with Clinton during the 90s, but we were not quite this divided. And I think the internet's probably enhanced that a little bit as well. We just weren't as divided back then. It's gotten to a point where some of these people don't even like their country anymore. They don't even like the United States. They don't like America. And it's like, it didn't used to be like that. Everybody used to love the country. They just, wanted some different policy changes. Well, it's getting to the point now where we're just, I see a lot of comments online, people suggesting, violent rebellion or whatever. It's like, not good. We need to, I was kind of surprised. I was reading some comments about Jeffries. He gave his 9-hour, however long he spoke the other day, trying to delay the passage of that bill. And there were comments in there, and the Democrats, the regular Democrat voters weren't happy about it. They think that the talking is not getting anything done for them. That they need to take more dramatic action. And I don't know exactly what they expect the Democrats to do. The Democrats aren't in power, but to me it sounded like they were suggesting some sort of violent uprising or something. But anyway, I know there's a lot of people out here hurting these days, financially and all. People don't have a lot of extra disposable income to go shopping. And that's going to wind up hurting businesses too. Businesses, rely on consumers shopping, and right now consumers don't have a lot of extra money to go shopping with. So I think that there's some significant issues there that are going to have to get addressed. I think they will be addressed pretty soon. Because they're not going to let that go on forever. I'm hoping that this bill that just passed will spur some economic activity. We've been kind of in a malaise here in the United States for a while. Actually, really the whole West has been. It's like there's not really anywhere in the industrialized world, in Europe, in the United States. Europe's been doing a little bit better than it had been, but Europe is so dependent on tourism and uh, there's not a whole lot. I mean, there are a few things, but they don't manufacture a lot. You know, it's like there's some industries over there, but nothing like, here. And it's like we're struggling here, they're struggling there. I was reading an article about how the Japanese are struggling. Even in China, people think China, but China's been struggling for a while. Their economy's not doing very well right now. When I look around the world, there's not really anybody that's doing, really knocking it out of the park right now. So, and anytime you get into an environment like this, you start worrying about the potential for war, because people try to break out of that. They're trying to dominate. And I think that's part of the reason maybe why Russia went into Ukraine. I think that may be part of the deal with that. I don't know, but I just worry about that getting worse. I was thinking a lot this morning about my own life and how things have kind of gone over the last 30 years or so. It doesn't take it doesn't take a lot of mistakes to really mess your life up. And there were 2 or 3 critical mistakes that I made in my life that have gotten me here. It's like when and I'm not in that bad of a situation. I'm a homeowner. I'm pretty middle class right now. I make close to 100, right around 100,000 a year. So I'm not in a terrible situation right now. But my life could have been a lot better, I think, if I hadn't made 2 or 3 critical mistakes. One of the key mistakes I made was when I was younger, and I really had developed some very strong feelings for a particular person. But I didn't have a lot of self-confidence. I'd always struggled with that. That had always been a problem for me. But it was more than just that. It was also that I didn't really feel like this other person had feelings for me. It was all one-sided. It was like I was the one that had feelings for her, but there wasn't really anything on the other side of it, and that wasn't what I wanted. I wanted someone that really wanted to be with me, and me specifically. And I don't think that was, I don't know. I think girls think a little differently. I think they expect the guy to approach them and then they kind of decide, or I don't know. It's like I think as a guy, you just think you're going to find somebody that likes you, that shows interest in you, and then it's like, I don't know what I expected to have happen, but I didn't handle it the right way and wound up losing her. I think that was one of my first big life mistake. My second big life mistake followed up right behind it, and after I lost her, I was so panicked that I kind of rushed myself into my first marriage. I think a lot of the reason I got into that first marriage was because my self-esteem was trash at the time. I shouldn't have gotten married at that point. I was in no place to be getting married at that point. To be honest with you, sometimes I feel like I never should have gotten married at all after losing that one girl. But it's just like I've been trying to force something that wasn't right. It's like I felt like I just was, the whole time I've been trying to force something that just wasn't right, and all I've done is just messed my life up even worse. I don't know. I am glad that I had my kids, you know. If I hadn't married my first wife, I guess I wouldn't have my oldest daughter, Ashley. And so I'm glad that I had my kids. That's, you know, I've got some guy friends that are my age or right around my age that don't have any children. And although they seem okay, I know at least for me, if I didn't have any children, I would feel a lot worse about my life. I really would. They've been one of the better parts of my life. So it's kind of one of those situations where it's like, I love being a dad, but the relationship stuff with women has just always been screwed up. It's always been screwed up. It's always, and I'm not even really looking anymore. I just feel like that time has kind of passed, I guess. I mean, I'm 49, but I don't know. It just doesn't even feel like something I want to fool with anymore. I'm really focused on everything else I've got going on in my life. You know, it's like I'm working on saving for retirement. I'm trying to help my kids out and all this stuff. And it's like, I just don't have the money or time to deal with a woman. So that's kind of where I'm at. Third mistake was after my first marriage ended. I was angry and bitter and just really bad place mentally at the time. My self-esteem was just completely, totally in the garbage. I was really depressed. I'm sure I think I was probably seriously depressed at the time all this happened. I had been the last 2 years of my first marriage. I was not in a good place. And I do honestly believe that the divorce was the right decision. I've never regretted that, getting divorced. Some people think that was a bad decision. I think the divorce was absolutely the right decision. In terms of that needed to happen. What this next mistake was that after I got out of that marriage, I was angry and bitter, and there was kind of a bit of rebelliousness. I was feeling a little rebellious at the time. I felt like I had always done everything that everyone told me to do. I had followed the path as best I could that everybody told me to follow, and everything still blew up in my face. And I was angry and bitter about it. And so I just decided to do whatever I wanted to do. And that was dumb, but it's what I did. Some of it was okay. You know, some of it actually did help me, believe it or not. I started dating, going out with women, and I just did whatever I wanted to do. I didn't, you know, I had grown up in a very traditional Mormon household and in the Mormon faith. I had served a mission for the church and everything, and I kind of abandoned all the rules and everything and just did whatever I wanted to do. And I'm going to be honest about it. My self-esteem improved. It did. And I don't know if women understand how tied a man's self-esteem is very much tied into how they are treated by women. It really is true. At least for me, it was. I didn't have a great self-esteem before I got married the first time. I got married, and it was kind of a lot of hope that I found someone that really wanted to be with me and loved me and would care about me. And it was like, it hardly ever felt like she wanted anything to do with me. And that just crashed my self-esteem even more. By the end of that marriage, it was in the toilet, you know. And then I started going out with all these different girls, and you know, things were going well, and my self-esteem improved. And it still wasn't the right thing to do. I think really I probably should have just taken a hiatus, taken a break, and just focused on fixing my own life a little bit at the time. Built my self-esteem that way. I wound up having another child with having Piper. Her mom and I were not married at the time when she got pregnant. That was the reason we got married, was because she got pregnant. And again, another not good decision, but I have a daughter out of it, you know. Piper's awesome. I love Piper, but you know, the relationship was a disaster. So I don't know why I'm even talking about this right now, but I kind of look back at my mistakes, and now it's just a matter of where do you go from here. You know, I can't go back and fix any of that. It is what it is. I haven't been active in church in years, and sometimes I think about going back, and it's just like, there's just so much involved with going to, especially to the Mormon church. It's like, if I go to go to the Mormon church and I start going regular, they're going to want me to give talks in church and teach classes and going through all this stuff and paying tithing and all. And I have to get prepared. I have to get ready for retirement. I don't have an extra 10% of my income to pay in tithing. I just don't. That might sound selfish or whatever, but it's like, it's already going to be hard enough for me to retire, much less doing all of that. I don't know. Every time I go down to St. Augustine, I walk into their Catholic cathedral down there, and I'll sit down and just sit and reflect and think. You know, I wasn't raised Catholic, but I think anytime you go into a kind of a reverent atmosphere, a reverent place, that you can kind of get in the right headspace. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, I just don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know really totally what I'm supposed to do with the rest of my life. I'm kind of in a place like that right now. I don't really know what I'm supposed to do at this juncture. I'll be 49 in August, and I don't have a real good grasp on how I'm supposed to live the rest of my life. My oldest daughter, she'll be 21 in September. She's becoming an adult and living her own life, doing her own thing. I am trying to help my girls as much as I can. That's part of what I'm working on. I'm hoping to retire maybe after about 13 years, and by the age of 62, I want to try to retire, maybe go live in Spain for a while and go hike the Camino de Santiago. But I have a lot of time where I'm just by myself all the time. And you hear about these, you hear these podcasts on YouTube talking about the man loneliness epidemic among men thing. It doesn't bother me to be by myself, it really doesn't. I don't know if it's, some people would say it's unhealthy to spend so much time by yourself. And I guess I can see that a little bit, but I do keep myself really busy, between, during the week. I mean, I'm out. I leave the house at 6:30 in the morning. I don't get home till about 8:30 at night during the week. So I basically get up, shower, go to work, come home, eat a little something, and then go to bed. That's the whole week, and then on the weekends, Saturdays are usually doing laundry, doing chores around the house, going to the grocery store, and then door dashing in the evening. And then Sunday, I come over here to my parents in the morning, and then I door dash in the evening. And I mean, that's my week. I mean, it's like that's all I do. I see I talk to my girls here and there. I don't know. I guess I'm just trying to figure that out. Where do I go from here? What am I supposed to be doing? Is there something else I should be working on in my life? Is there something else I should be doing? I don't know when I would do it, but it's like sometimes I think about should I even try to bring a woman into my life again? It's like there's this feeling of I just don't know if I want to go back down that road again. It's always been a disaster. I don't know if that's ever going to change. I don't know. I just don't know. Something to think about. I'm not really thinking too much about it, but I got to thinking about it a little bit last night, and it's like, I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens. I'm getting ready to go over to my parents' house. You guys have a great day. Don Pelayo, checking out.